Tarzan is Frozen's lost brother. He survived. In Frozen, Anna and Elsa are told their parents died at sea. Then Tarzan opens with another shipwreck, two royal-looking adults, same old-world styling, same lost-at-sea setup, and a baby boy who ends up in the wild. That is why this theory keeps resurfacing. It is not just two storms, it is the same family-shaped hole. The outside clue made it explode. Jennifer Lee, the director of Frozen, once said she imagined the king and queen surviving the storm, washing up in a jungle, building a treehouse, having a baby, and later being killed by a leopard. That is basically Tarzan's opening with the names removed. Disney never stamped it as official canon, but the overlap is almost too neat. The pushback is geography. Arendelle's route is never locked down, and Tarzan is usually read as Africa, so the map gets messy fast. Fair. But Disney also keeps those details vague enough that the theory still breathes, and that is why it works so well. It turns two separate tragedies into one continuous story. Frozen's missing parents stop being a dead end, and Tarzan suddenly feels like the darkest sequel Disney never admitted it made. Rapunzel was hiding in Frozen. She was in the crowd for a reason. At Elsa's coronation in Frozen, Rapunzel and Flynn walk into Arendelle for a split second. Same faces, same outfits, no ambiguity. Disney wanted people to catch it, but the shot plays like more than a wink. It feels planted. The timeline is what makes it interesting. Tangled ends with Rapunzel reclaiming her identity and returning to Corona as its princess. Frozen begins with a major royal ceremony. A coronation is exactly the kind of event neighboring kingdoms would attend, so Rapunzel showing up there makes sense politically, not just visually. She is not hidden in a tower anymore, she is a public royal. That is where the theory gets stronger. Fans noticed Rapunzel is not buried as a random background extra. She is placed near the entrance, framed clearly like an invited guest. That placement keeps the cousin theory alive too, because Elsa, Anna, and Rapunzel share enough design traits that people started reading them as connected bloodlines. Of course, Disney loves Easter eggs. That is the easy explanation. But this cameo is unusually specific, and it appears in a scene about succession, diplomacy, and family legacy. So even if the cousin angle stays unconfirmed, the larger point still lands. Disney quietly linked these kingdoms on purpose. Mirabel was the miracle. Mirabel was never the mistake. Encanto tells you the miracle is the candle, the house, and the gifts. Then the movie keeps showing the opposite. The family starts breaking when Mirabel is excluded, and the magic only stabilizes when Mirabel becomes the center. That is why this theory hits so hard. The miracle was not the candle, it was Mirabel. Every magical child touches a door and gets a role-shaped power, strength, healing, flowers, prophecy. Mirabel gets nothing visible, and the family treats that like failure. On a rewatch, it looks intentional. She becomes the only person in the house who is not trapped inside a function, which is exactly why she can see what everyone else misses. Luisa is collapsing. Isabella is performing perfection. Bruno is exiled. Abuela is turning trauma into control. Casita also behaves differently around her from the beginning. It responds to her emotions, helps her find the cracks, protects her when no one listens, and then hands her the final doorknob after the rebuild. That is not random affection. That is recognition. The film never says the theory out loud, and it does not need to. It keeps proving it through behavior. Mirabel does not get a flashy gift because she is not there to hold the magic together. She is there to save the family when the magic becomes the problem. Peter Pan is the real villain. Peter Pan is the trap. Disney frames him as freedom, flying, adventure, no rules, no bedtime. Then you actually watch what he does. He appears in children's bedrooms at night, pulls Wendy away from home, and brings her to an island where kids fight pirates and are expected to stay young forever. That is not just a hero entrance. It feels like recruitment. The darker reading gets stronger when you focus on his behavior instead of his image. Peter is charming, but he is also reckless, forgetful, and strangely cold. He forgets people quickly. He treats danger like a game. He gets annoyed when fear interrupts the fun. And the Lost Boys are not just carefree runaways. They are children living inside Peter's version of reality, under Peter's rules, with adulthood framed as the enemy. That is where Neverland changes shape. Never grow up sounds magical until you see what it actually means. No responsibility, no future, no stable home, no exit unless Peter allows one. Wendy wants wonder, but she also wants safety and meaning. Peter keeps pushing risk and mocking maturity like growing up is betrayal. Hook is still a villain. That part is true. But Peter controls the emotional tone of the island, so his manipulation gets packaged as adventure. Watch the film from Wendy's perspective, and Peter stops looking like a savior. He looks like the smiling face of a place that does not let children leave unchanged. Belle is trapped in a time loop. Time is repeating. The strangest thing in Beauty and the Beast is not the talking furniture. It is the timeline. The more you listen to what the movie says, the less the years make sense, and that is why this theory works. Belle is not just in a cursed castle. She is inside a time loop created by the curse. Here is the contradiction. The enchantress gives Beast a deadline tied to his 21st year, but the servants also sing they have been cursed for 10 years. If both are literal, Beast would have been a child when he was punished, which does not fit the film's own framing of him as a selfish adult ruler. Something is off. The theory says the curse did more than transform bodies. It bent time. Inside the castle, routines repeat, seasons stall, and everyone lives in the same emotional cycle, while the rose acts like a countdown mechanism. Outside, the world barely seems to hold a clear memory of the prince at all. The castle feels near, but somehow disconnected, like it is stuck beside the world rather than fully in it. Then Belle arrives, and the pattern breaks. Hidden rooms matter again. Relationships shift. The rose drops faster. The loop starts collapsing. It is fairy tale logic, not sci-fi mechanics, but the effect is the same. Belle does not just enter a cursed house. She steps into time that has been circling for years. Wish secretly created Disney lore. This is the origin story. Wish looks like a one-off fairy tale, but the theory says it is doing something bigger, building the mythology behind Disney's oldest promise, Wish Upon a Star, not just referencing it, explaining where that magic comes from. The biggest clue is star. It is not a mascot. It is a conscious force that responds to desire, amplifies courage, and turns emotion into visible magic. That feels like the missing engine behind decades of Disney stories where a wish changes everything, but nobody explains how. In Wish, the movie finally gives that power a face. The film piles on the evidence through imagery, constellations, storybook framing, kingdom iconography, language about hope, longing, and possibility repeated like ritual. Fans read that as more than anniversary nostalgia because it behaves like lore building. It feels like Disney sketching the rules of its own fairy tale universe. Asha and Magnifico make that reading even stronger. Magnifico hoards wishes, freezes them, and controls who gets to dream. Star releases them. It shares power instead of gatekeeping it. That turns the conflict into a statement about what Disney magic is supposed to be. Not authority from above, but possibility unlocked in ordinary people. Sure, some of it is homage. Of course it is. But the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Wish takes a slogan Disney has used for generations and quietly turns it into canon mythology. Jane is Belle's descendant. The family line did not end at the castle. This theory survives because it starts with one detail Disney could have skipped. In Tarzan, Jane and her father use a tea set that looks almost identical to Mrs. Potts and Chip from Beauty and the Beast. Not exact enough to force canon, just close enough to feel deliberate. Then the timeline clicks into place. Beauty and the Beast is usually placed in 18th century France. Tarzan reads as late 19th century with Victorian clothing, colonial-era travel, and scientific expeditions. That leaves plenty of room for multiple generations, which makes the descendant theory plausible without stretching anything. Jane also feels like Belle in a new century. She is curious, articulate, and fascinated by a world everyone around her either fears or misunderstands. She chooses wonder over status. She follows questions instead of etiquette. That is not proof, but it is the same character, DNA. The strongest version of the theory is simple. After the curse broke, some objects from the castle stayed with the family as heirlooms. Over time, the magic became a forgotten story, but the objects remained. By the time Jane appears, she still has the tea set and no idea what history she is holding. Yes, it could be an Easter egg. Disney animators love callbacks, but this one does something better than fan service. It creates continuity. Belle's ending becomes a beginning, and Jane feels like the next chapter of the same bloodline. The evil queen became Gothel. She did not die. She adapted. At first, this sounds like a pure crossover theory. Then you compare the villains and it gets uncomfortable. The evil queen in Snow White and Mother Gothel in Tangled are built around the same obsession: youth, beauty, and power preserved through magic. The theory says they are not just similar. They are the same woman at different stages of survival. Snow White already gives the first piece. The queen can transform herself completely on Danny's face, voice, posture, identity, using potion magic. Disguise is not a trick for her. It is a skill. Then she falls during the chase, but the film never gives the kind of final, unmistakable ending fairy tales usually use when they want a villain gone forever. Gothel fits what comes next almost perfectly. She is ancient, hidden from society, and survives by stealing youth from someone else. The method changes from mirror magic to the flower in Rapunzel's hair, but the goal never changes. Even the manipulation style matches: false warmth, controlled isolation, and constant psychological pressure. The canon gap is real. Disney never directly connects the two, and the timeline spans different eras. So this stays theory territory, but character logic is where it lands. Snow White did not destroy the queen's obsession. She only destroyed her public power. If the queen escaped, Gothel is exactly what she would become: older, more careful, and even more desperate to outrun age.